Hey there. Today we're going to run through the branching features of Omnata. Omnata's branching features are designed to be flexible, so they suit multiple deployments, whether that's a single Snowflake account with multiple target environments, a single Snowflake account with just one production environment, or if you have test and prod segregated over both your Snowflake accounts and your target environments. Omnata can work in all of these situations. First, I'm going to show you the most common form of branching, which is a single Snowflake account, but you have test and prod target environments. Branching starts when you create your connections. You will tell Omnata whether a connection is either a non-production or a production environment, and that will determine what options come up and where when you go to configure a sync. You can create a sync to a non-production environment or a production environment in the same way. However, when you create a sync to a production environment, you do have the option to create a test branch. And this is where you can use your non-production environment to fire off any changes before you merge the configuration. By merging the configuration, we mean you can copy the configuration from your test to your prod branch of your sync without having to click through any of the sync config. You can learn more about branching in our docs, and there's a blog post linked in the description. So you can see on our Salesforce plugin, we have a bunch of connections. We have Chris Production and Chris Sandbox, and they're the two connections that we're going to use today. So we start off by creating a sync, and we're going to create that to the production environment because this is going to be the main branch of the sync. We're going to do an outbound sync because outbound is really the most important situation for branching because you're modifying a downstream system. Now, when we configure the main branch for the first time, what we're going to do is a very minimal configuration. So we're just going to pick the target object, which is going to be contact. And we're not really going to map any fields. We're just going to map the mandatory field and leave everything else for later. We're going to set it to manual because we don't want the sync to run straight away. And then we're going to click Start Sync. What this is going to do is create the sync job, and it's going to create the main branch, which is to the production, but it's not going to run yet because it's on a manual schedule. Then what we want to do is go back into the sync, and we're going to create the test branch. So we go back into the sync, into the menu button, and we click Create a Branch. This is going to ask us, do you want to enable branching mode? So now we're creating a test branch, and then we're going to pick a non-production connection to test to, and that's our Chris Sandbox environment. We follow through the same steps. We're actually going to use the same source table, but this time we're going to put in the actual field mapping that we want to test out. So our target object is still contact, and we're going to properly map the fields this time. So we're just going to use the auto map, and we're going to apply all of those field mappings. And we're going to leave this one on manual as well. So we're creating the branch, and it's not going to run automatically, but you can run on a schedule if you do want to test that out. So you can see now we have Chris Production on the main branch, and then we have the Sandbox on the test branch. So we want to test that out. We want to see what it actually looks like in the downstream system. And we're going to click Run Now, and we're going to check that out. Over to Salesforce, all of our contacts appearing. We can see the field mapping, emails, titles are all done. So if we click refresh, we'll be able to see the health state. Now, just so you know that this is a real demo, the status is actually incomplete because Salesforce is picking up some duplicates. Our source database is not unique enough, and some of those records are showing as already existing in that environment. Anyway, we're going to ignore that, and we're going to merge this configuration anyway. So once we're back on the sync screen, we can see the field mapping that we want to merge, and we can click on the diff view to see what's the difference between the test branch and the production branch. And so we can see the mapping exists on the branch but is not mapped on the main. We're happy with that mapping, and now what we're going to do is merge this test configuration into the production sync. So we just hit copy config and select the main branch. And once we hit confirm, all of those sync parameters are going to be copied from test to main, and the main will have the identical configuration to the branch. You can use this process to test any change that you make to a sync before you merge it to production. And you can easily roll back to a previous configuration if you make a mistake or if you end up breaking something in production. Now we're going to update the schedule on our main branch to hourly, and that's going to incrementally update those records as they appear in the Snowflake table.